So let me get started by introducing our investor team. I'm going to go in alphabetical order. Interestingly enough, all of our investors' last names begin with an S. So Thorne Sparkman, if you're somebody in Rhode Island and you're going to raise money, or you even contemplating raising money, you know Thorne, or you've spoken to Thorne. Thorne's the managing director of the Slater Technology Fund, and he's worked with and started over 30 companies in 20 years. He's accumulated lots of experience, both evaluating and assembling the key pieces of early stage ventures. Before Slater, Thorne launched an internet products at Time Warner. He was founding CEO of an Incubator Incorporated in Berkeley, California, and the founder and CEO of eScribe Corporation, the creator of Internet Communities, which was acquired by Name Media, which is pretty cool. And Thorne, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to keep introducing here and introduce Tom Sperry. Tom is really interesting because he's very new to our Rhode Island community. He is a very successful venture capitalist. We're thrilled he's come to Rhode Island, and I hope he's fallen in love with Jamestown. He's the managing director of Rogue Venture Partners, which is a Portland, Oregon-based private equity fund. Prior to Rogue, he was the CEO of two venture-backed companies, Exit Games and Blade 3D. Tom began his career at Microsoft Corporation, where he was the founding member of the games division, and he currently sits on the board of Sourced, Meg Computing, Lensible, and CrowdSmart. Thank you, Tom, for joining us today. We're excited to have you here. And last but not least, we have Jean Sullivan. Jean's joining us from New York City. Jean and I go way back. Jean actually invested in my first company, Blue Streak. She's a seasoned venture capitalist who got her start years ago in technology at Bell Labs. And she actually became her first general partnership came venture capital with Olivetti. She co-founded Starbest Partners, which was a rare female-led venture capital firm back in the 90s. And basically, it served as the member of the Women's Leadership Board with Harvard Kennedy School. That's what she's currently doing as well, as a trustee with the New York Hall of Science, and also Astia. And if you're a female and you're looking for money, Astia is a great place to go. It does fund many women-funded companies. Today, and this is kind of exciting. So Jean, I have known her for years, and she has morphed her career. Today, from China to Norway to the United States, everybody knows Jean as the person who's going to talk to you about the cannabis market. So the fact that we have Jean here today is really exciting. And I really wanted to take a moment to have Jean, and then we're going to go back to each of you. I'd like Jean to give all of us an update on the cannabis market. She today works with ArcView Ventures, which is actually one of the more well-known cannabis investor players. Take it away, Jean. And Jean and I do a lot of golfing together, by the way.
Thank you so much, Annette. Hi, everyone. Jean Sullivan here. Annette and I, as you just heard, we've known each other a long time. I proudly was one of her investors and on her board. And because we go to Newport all the time, we play golf and try and beat each other every summer. I think we trade back and forth, Annette. My husband's family happens to be from Newport, Rhode Island, so it's thrilling for me to be there and all. So here's what's happened for me. It is a story I love to tell. People always ask me two questions. They say, Jean, why are you doing this? This being the cannabis industry, as if I'm running a porn ring. It's like the funniest stigma. I mean, it's still here, believe me, you know that. And then they just gotta know, Jean, do you smoke? Do you use? Are you high right now? It's just amazing, that both questions. So here's what happened to me. So I have been a VC, as you heard, for many years. In fact, proudly, I have been part of more than 125 enterprise class software and other VC-backed companies, just because I've been hanging around the hoops a long time. And my best credential to tell you is I have seen 1,000 times 1,000 companies. And I'm a real deal junkie. So, by the way, I've been on all morning because I think it's important to hear what's being said. And I've loved what Shannon said. Pat, good words of wisdom, and Matt. So that's been pretty interesting all morning. So to get to the point, in 2014, it's now almost 7 years, I rolled off my fund, and it was time for new things after really 25 years being a VC. And I did a little international travel, and that was the year New York passed the Compassionate Care Act. And we decided, hey, let's get involved. Now, here's the goofiest thing of all. Nobody can believe I'm in this business because, first of all, I excoriated my kids when they used, and I didn't necessarily like it when John, my husband, who was, as we say, familiar with the plant, smoked. People cannot believe I am now such a fierce advocate for what's going on in cannabis. Why is that? I turned first to figure it out. What's going on? And I learned about the draconian social justice issues. What? We still arrest more than 600,000 people a year just for mere possession? This is craziness. But then being a longtime investor, I saw within 5 seconds the economic upside and learned then about the health and wellness and started going to the big conferences. This year in Vegas would have been my 6th trip to the major conference of the year, which is the MJ Biz Conference. Now, by the way, let me share this. If you want to know more, if you want to play as an advocate, play as an investor, play as a business owner, now is your time. I'm happy to share resources and ideas. I always answer my email. So if you want to reach me to connect, I unabashedly will tell you, I want to hear about you, your businesses. I love to connect people. You want to play in the industry? I'm happy to connect you. You have a business for us to look at? Because here's what happened. When I started going to the conferences, Troy Dayton, who was one of the founders of ArcView, found me and said, Gene, I need classically trained investors. Help me stand up better deal flow and great investors. They are a 10-year-old company that's been convening investors and companies. And Steve D'Angelo is also one of the founders. You may know him if you're in the business at all, one of the great pioneers. And so my point is, this marketplace is one of the fastest growing marketplaces in the world today. Just last year, it was a $13.2 billion industry. That's in 2019. This year, around 20 billion. That's a global number, and that's just sales of flower and some derivatives. It doesn't even include all the ancillary and tech platforms. And it's so varied. When you think about cannabis, you might think about it as just the license holders and a grow operation. It is many, many sectors. It's also very complicated with lots of rules, and as you probably know, 50 fiefdoms, 50 different states. We are just not as smart as Canada. We are true laggards as a country because they figured out how to have a federal program. So you could invent the best product in Vancouver and send it by mail to Nova Scotia. Here we have these goofy state limitations. In theory, you cannot even send product across state lines unless it's CBD, which, as you know, the Farm Act made that. That's just a few snippets of what's going on.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Back to you.
That's very helpful, Jean. I appreciate it. And by the way, Jean will answer and will make sure everybody can get her email address if you're interested in learning more about the cannabis space. It goes state by state. Rhode Island has a compassionate use, but not recreational, as we know. New Jersey just passed recreational, and Massachusetts has recreational as an example. But anyway, thank you for that, Jean. Let's go to the other VCs and get a little bit background from them. Tom, I'd love you to give a little bit of your background, why you started Rogue Ventures and how you ended up here in Rhode Island.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, everyone. And it's great to be here. So I started Rogue Venture Partners in 2011. We're an early stage venture fund. We invest in technology companies in seed and Series A. We're currently raising and just hit our first close of our 4th fund. We tend to raise between $30 and $50 million. for our funds. I started Rogue with the thesis of looking at undercapitalized regions. So we look at tier 2 and tier 3 cities. I was living out in the West Coast in Portland, Oregon for the last 20 plus years. And Portland is a kind of a key example of that. Bookended by Seattle and San Francisco, huge technology and access to capital, where Portland didn't really have that. So we were a big fund for tier 2 and tier 3 cities. We don't look at deals necessarily in San Francisco, New York, Boston, but we'll look at deals in places like Portland and Providence and cities like that. So we just hit our first close, like I said. So we'll be investing out of our fourth fund. 2 years ago, it's good to see Jean here. We launched the Rogue Women's Fund. I hired a woman out of Nike, and so we have a fund to invest in early stage women CEOs and women founders. That's been live for about 18 months, and it's been a huge privilege to be a part of that. And we're excited. I live here now in Jamestown full time. And we're excited about the opportunities of doing deals in Rhode Island and working with everyone here. So
that's awesome. Thank you. And Thorn, you have done an amazing job because you have, dare I say the word pivoted, but actually morphed, if you will, evolved the Slater Fund over the years. Give us a little bit of background about the Slater Fund for those that aren't really familiar.
Sure, Annette, thanks. The Slater Technology Fund was started when a bunch of the CEOs around Rhode Island, like Tom Ryan from CVS and others, decided that the tech industry around here would be enhanced if there was a seed fund to focus locally. So the state of Rhode Island, the state legislature, funded the first phase of Slater, and they started the company in order to have kind of hired guns like myself and others who had a little bit of experience in startups. So the first bit of money came from the state of Rhode Island over the first 10 or 15 years. In the second phase, we had money from the federal government. And these days we do a lot of special purpose vehicles, which are funded by private individuals. So the general trend has continued in terms of us doing pretty much the straight seed venture capital playbook. We're funding things as small as $50,000. I think the largest investment I've ever made was $1.3 million. We're focusing on software, life sciences, and energy technology companies. And we can go super early. I think some of the people in this room have probably been funded when they were the slide deck and just starting to build a team. The Slater Fund's invested about $40 million of government money and then more of private capital into about 140 companies in the last 20 years.
Excellent. So I'm going to ask the first question because I know it's a burning question on everybody's mind for each of you to just go around the room and ask, and then I'm going to toss it over to Adam. My first question, and we'll start with you, Thorn. I'm a local entrepreneur and I don't really know many people. How do I get a hold of you? How do I make my first intro to a venture capitalist? How do I find you?
Yeah, well, you can find me if you're on this Zoom. I'm Thorn@slaterfund.com. So email me, and right. And I'd be more than happy to see if I can help you.
So you take inbounds that you don't know, like didn't get introduced to you in today's spam-filled world, there are actually inbounds that are not really intended for me. I try to sniff those out, but just email me. But there's a bigger question here, which is how do you get to find other investors? And I do that all the time. Right. I mean, I do the exact same thing to investors and family offices and high net worth individuals and, frankly, entrepreneurs and key opinion leaders all the time. So, I mean, there's a couple strategies, but the most important one is to look into LinkedIn and see who that person knows and try and find some commonality. This was a lot harder to do back in the old days. Today, shame on you if you're not trying to figure out someone who's 2 hops away. If I don't have a connection,
There's certain super spreaders out there like Pat Sabatino, who's connected to everybody in the entire world. So, if I'm not connected to a person through Pat Sabatino and Angus Davis, then I would be pretty surprised. But you can also get other people in your orbit to look into LinkedIn and find those people. Okay.
Yes,
so that's pretty important. If you can get introduced to someone, you'll still have to prove your worth and make yourself intro worthy and relevant to that person. But that's a pretty good place to start.
Excellent. How about you, Gene? If nobody knows you, Gene, and I know you just put your email out there, if somebody wants to get into ArcView, for example, how do they do it? How do they get introduced?
Thank you. I really do believe it's so hard to go in cold. And people just need to learn how to network. So look, a lot of these people in this event today, and you being in Rhode Island and so well known to both Brown and Massachusetts entrepreneurs, if they said to you, Annette, would you introduce me to Gene? Annette, if you sent me an entrepreneur, of course I would look. So I really believe in the art of that connection. Not going in cold, having a warm introduction of somebody that I trust and somebody that I would absolutely open that. So that's the first point. Second, just like Thorne said, LinkedIn is important. And now there's a similar platform called LeafWire for cannabis people where they can connect. It's got a job board. You can connect with other people in the industry. These kinds of communities, I think, are key. And third thing, there's an old saying, when you want money, seek guidance, and when you want guidance, seek money. The idea of going into somebody and not saying, hey, will you fund me? But would you be, the line is this, would you be willing to have a guidance discussion with me? I am seeking, my angel round. That can really produce results.
Thank you, Gene. As a matter of fact, as a person who's probably pitched more than almost anybody I know, I always go in and learn something when I pitch to an investor. So that's great. Okay, Tom, last but not least, how do people get to you? How do they get to know you or your firm?
Yeah, so I'm actually not on any social media, so you won't find me on LinkedIn or anything like that. So you actually have to do your homework. But yeah, just like everybody else said, if you're not savvy enough to research who we are, who we invest in, who do you know in our network, then kind of shame on you. So we do have a generic email on our website that you can send your material to. The chances of us getting back to that without some sort of warm introduction are probably pretty slim. But we do review all those. But for us, at least for me, I think some other folks on my team have LinkedIn, but for me, it's really do your homework, understand who and why you're contacting us. Are we the right people for you? Who do you know, like Annette or Pat or Adam or anybody else that would make sense to contact us? And then I would just say, most importantly, when you do come meet with us or anyone else, come prepared, right? Come prepared with an ask, come prepared what you need, come prepared with questions, come prepared with your due diligence on who we are, what we've invested in, what our thesis is, and what we care about. Because it does you no good to waste your time and our time, because that's the most valuable thing we have. And, we can both learn a lot from well-prepared meetings.
Great.
And let
Thank
me
you.
underscore something so critical that Tom just said. You have to understand if the people you're seeking want what you've got. That's a common and rookie mistake. And I just encourage people not to make it. For instance, in my StarVest life, people would come to us all the time with biopharma deals. We were tech and business tech enabled companies. In my cannabis world, it's a wide variety of subject matter. So I want to see everything. But that's really important. Is it the right stage? If you're in California and you're an angel investor in an institution on the East Coast, maybe we don't want you. Maybe it's a geographic play. What about subject matter and et cetera? So I think that kind of homework's critical.
Great. I'm going to toss this over to Adam and let Adam, who's the up-and-coming entrepreneur, have at it, Adam. Ask away.
Good morning, everyone. Well, just on this note, as an entrepreneur myself, when I graduated, I knew no one, right? So the question of how do I meet VCs was very prescient. I met, one Brown alum who preceded me, who connected me with Pat, and then that's basically how I met everyone in Rhode Island. So the power of networking cannot be understated, and it's through that I met Tom and I met everyone here on this call. So I really recommend that you go out there, you meet people, and you build relationships. But I think networking is probably a separate call. Now, just like all these people before me helped me out, now that I'm 3 years out of school, I have a lot of really early stage founders oftentimes hitting me up, at the earliest idea formation. Last night they had an idea with their friend, and the next day they call me. What Gene was saying is a lot about finding the right match with a VC. Now, I want to take one step back. When I talk to a founder who's at the idea phase and they reach a conclusion that they need some kind of funding, first off, how do they know that VC is even the right kind of capital for them in general? And I'd like to hear an answer from each panelist. Gene, can you start?
Yes. Well, first it keys off of what I said. You got to make sure that they want what you've got. And the best way to do that is many times, not always, but usually, VCs post their portfolio. So if you see a similar company or something you have that's at or above parity, hey, you might have a chance. Again, I caution about going in cold because many institutions, and especially VCs, will not pay attention unless it came in from the right introduction. So it's really key to zero in on, is that the right subject matter? And a lot of VCs, again, only want companies where they can drive to that company. Others play nationally, maybe globally. So those are important, really important things. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere. You're wasting your time. You're wasting their time. So that would be my main suggestion on that.
Thank you, Gene. Hey, Thorne, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm starting a pizza shop. Is VC right for me?
Typically not. Times change, but typically not. So, the venture guys want to return to limited partners 4, 6, 8 times the money they put in at the fund level. That includes the 7 out of 10 times that they whiff on the investments. So that you think about venture capitalists wanting to return 10 times the investment on a single company, but honestly, they want to return 100 times the investment on a company. And these are companies that are often just starting. They may not have customers or products. So it's a pretty irrational, unlikely set of events that results in a 10 to 100 bagger. It's the kind of thing where you've come up with some product that huge customers that pay a lot for it need. It's the kind of thing where they're buying a product or input to their business that's 1/10 of the price of what they used to do before. It's the kind of thing where you have a cure to an unmet medical need and a patent so that you're the only one who can produce it. These are the kinds of technological driven companies and products that return 100 times their invested capital. So it's just kind of rare. But so that kind of unfair advantage, that kind of giant market, and that kind of head and shoulders advantage over the next best alternative, those would be the types of things you'd have to think you had. And you could have a pizza that tastes literally 100 times as good as the next pizza at literally 10% of the cost, but it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, and nothing against pizza. I've actually got a full Sally's clam of pizza from New Haven that I picked up last night on my way from Providence down to New York ahead of Thanksgiving. So I love a good pizza. And then Tom, why, as an entrepreneur, should I explore VC? Why is VC the right fit for me?
I think Domino's Pizza has actually been the best performing stock in the last 15 years. So if I bet on Domino's, I would be in pretty good shape. But they're actually a technology company now, not a pizza company. But Look, I think the real question is wherever you are in the life cycle of your company, what type of money do you need and who do you want to get it from, right? It's not whether or not you should go from VC. It's whether you're too early and you should get it from friends or family, or you've got other access to an angel group or whatever. So you really have to be smart to think and talk to the folks like us to say, who and where are we today and where should we look at getting capital? And there are a bunch of different types of VCs that you should talk to based on what type of company you are. If you're a consumer company, you should look at consumer-faced VCs. If you're a tech company, if you're a clean tech company, whatever problem you're trying to solve, there's probably folks out there who would be interested in talking to you, and if not necessarily writing a check to you, they would be interested in helping you and guiding you and introducing you to others. But again, it really depends where you are in the life cycle of your company and what type of money you should be looking for and why. And then the other thing I would say is, every time somebody comes to us, I really push them in saying, is VC the right type of money for you and who you are? Because once you take our money, there's a different type of relationship you and your company are going to have now because you've got outside capital.
I'll also add, I've actually built 3 startups, one of each. So one with venture capital backing, one with more angel backing, and one with no backing. And the thing that is most important to you, the entrepreneur, is to figure out what you need in the next year. And that financial version of your business is essential, because by knowing that, you'll know whether or not you need to raise money, how much. You'll also know whether or not you can get by, perhaps with a little less capital. And by the way, if you can go make money by selling, that's number one. So thank you for all of those topics. But it's really important to understand how much money you need and whether or not a venture firm is the right way to go.
Yes, and Adam and Annette, let me add in my best pearl of wisdom that relates to this discussion. Even in the earliest days, I really believe in forming your own personal board of advisors. Figure out a way to get to that domain expert of a pizza shop. That's very doable, especially in today's world where there are so many people playing and exited, let's say, executives who are now doing more entrepreneurial things. Form your own little board. Be organized about it. They'll help you find the right capital or connections, give you ideas on how to handle that. Because guess what happens? Then when you have to go for larger capital, guess who they're going to call? They're going to call those people that are sitting around your table, eating pizza and beer periodically in meetings that you're going to host that are very well organized. And they're going to say, is this person, does he or she know what they're doing? Are they organized? Do they have the domain smarts and street savvy to pull this off? That could be your first place where people go for some kind of reference. So I really believe in that, and that'll also make it less formidable being the lone stranger, which is very hard to do.
That's great advice.
And on that topic, when we raised, the investors were calling the people on our pitch deck listed as advisors for diligence. So also be thoughtful about who you do put in your deck. Don't put names in the deck of people that aren't actually advisors of yours, because they will get phone calls from investors. And if that person says, I've only talked to that person once for 30 minutes, you're not going to get a check. So be very thoughtful about the names that you do put on the deck. Make sure you get consent from the advisors, and make sure that you're actually putting people on the deck that are actually advising and bringing value and could speak highly of you.
So I think maybe everybody should put Pat Sabatino on their deck as an advisor. Just kidding. All right. Here's a question from Mia. Can you give an example of one of the craziest ideas that was a huge risk, but was a great payoff? Have you ever, I'm not so sure crazy ideas are something you'd put money into, because I know how well thought out each and every one of you are. But is there such a thing as a, kind of a crazy idea that you could see was a huge risk, but it actually in the long run paid off?
I will laughingly share that as I look back, I realize I've been on the bleeding edge of multiple industries. So we were early and one of the first, certainly not the only, to talk about software as a service and cloud-based computing as far back as the late 90s. And that's how we built our first fund. And so, Pat, you got to love this. We were the only VC to invest in NetSuite in its earliest days. We were in New York, and we said, well, why didn't Silicon Valley do that? It's because they really didn't, want to invest behind Larry Ellison. We, sitting in New York, didn't quite see it that way and saw him as one of the geniuses of our time. And so we did invest in one of those earliest cloud-based computing before people even understood it. Why would you have something with the central financial suite and everything else integrated in? It was priced in a goofy pricing. It didn't hurt that we had $100 million of Larry's money. And did I happen to mention that Oracle did finally buy it for $10 billion? And so, it became the jewel in our crown because we then understood cloud-based computing, invested in about 40 of those, and people wanted to get close to NetSuite. So, all of this is risk strategy stuff where it's not really a baked marketplace. People don't understand it. And yes, pretty crazy with some of the early pricing and, finding your way, as you go. And then to be in the cannabis industry in the earliest days has also been thrilling and crazy. It's goofy, it's complicated, but just learning to figure things out like that and then seeing companies scale. And believe me, I've certainly placed my bets on companies that didn't work along the way, both tech and other. And it comes down to, I believe, one thing. It was said earlier by Shannon too, is the timing right? Is the marketplace right for what you thought? I was in some of the earliest pen-based computing companies way back. It took 10 years for them to grow up. On cannabis, I've been in some devices that absolutely got outmoded pretty quickly once PAX came on with their vape pens. So a lot of it is what's going on in the marketplace and is the timing right?
So I'd actually like to hear from both Tom and Thorne. Is there anything right now vertically that you guys are interested in the most, or causes you guys to say, yeah, I'm going to look at this because I'm very, very focused on this type of vertical? Anything for you, Tom, like that? Or do you go across?
No, I would say as tough as it is to say, COVID's actually been a boost to a lot of my portfolio companies. About 50% of our portfolio companies are in the healthcare med tech space. So we've seen a boost in that. Our fourth fund, we're actually doubling down and looking in the long-term care space more. So in the ancillary services all around long-term care, we've got a large percentage of our LPs who are in that space. And if you think about it, so I'll give you an example. If you think about how COVID has impacted the long-term care space, one, if you think about it from a family side, do you want to send your aging loved one into a building that might have COVID? Two, if you're the building, do your employees feel safe, right? Do your customers feel safe? What type of services, and as people age, they're going to want to stay home, right? So what kind of services can these long-term care facilities and ancillary services give to those customers who are staying home, lock them in, and then think about, as they age, move into one of their facilities? If you know that the people who help fund long-term care facilities are actually REITs, and how are they looking at, the impact on their business? So there's a lot to be thought about in that one specific space that we're pretty bullish on. I wouldn't say that's where all of our funding is going to go, but I would say 50% of our new fund will be in the healthcare space with a specific bent to long-term care and ancillary services.
That's terrific. What about you, Thorne? Anything you like right now in particular?
I'm not a specialist. I really am not an industry specialist, and I think that is makes it more difficult. Honestly, I think people who can invest in something like cannabis over and over again have an advantage. They see all the deals in that space. They decipher things more quickly. They know the entrepreneurs and have great networks. So I think that's an advantage. I will say that you asked before about wacky things, and I mean certainly there are a lot of deals that I've seen evolve from what they thought they were going to do to something very different with the same people and technology, and they've been very, very successful. I'm not sure that's wacky so much as adaptive. I also think that luck or making luck is important, and I think that some of the most impactful value propositions and opportunities come a little bit out of left field. They come from unexpected spots, unexpected combinations of technologies and industries. So I think of some of the companies that we've started out of the Naval Undersea Warfare Center. One entrepreneur wanted to build digital mammography software out of undersea sonar. And I thought that was kind of out of left field. The guys from Carbon Point who wanted to use 20-year-old technology around powering subs and torpedoes to make new non-emissive power plants. I think that's kind of out of left field, and it was crazy, but there was such a wave coming of interest and mandatory times of change around climate that those were things that we invested in. There are things that I'm interested in, and we've invested 3 times now in genomics and genomic software, and keep a weather eye to that space. I think the combination of software and healthcare in the digital medicine space, those are unstoppable trends. Those are huge, hard problem sets, and genomics and the potential there is not going to stop for the next 30 years. We've had 25 years of gene therapy development, and there's 4 on the market. So the certain themes like that, you cannot be too deep, you cannot be too focused. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Adam, do you have any an additional question or two?
I have a question.
You don't, I do, but keep going.
Aligned with this, and I want to make sure it's not the most positive question in the world, but I think it's really helpful for an entrepreneur to know. I'd love to hear, like, anonymously and at a high level, about a deal that you passed on and why you passed on it. Tom, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So we looked at 850 deals last year, and we did 5. So
wow.
We and I think it's probably the same with everybody, right? Our job is to say no until we find that sweet spot. At the end of the day, we are early like Thorn. And for us, I would say probably one of the number one reasons we say no is the team and the people. I look at it as a long-term marriage, and do I want to be married with these folks, and do they have the tenacity and grit to when things go horribly wrong, are they going to give up and walk away? Because that's the easy thing to do. And I've seen that and been a part of that, and it's the worst. I would say outside of everything Thorn and Gina said, like big market, experts in their space, I think every deal we do is wacky, or we wouldn't do those deals because that's the business that we're in. So for me, at the end of the day, outside of like stupid valuations and they just don't know their numbers, and people, we just looked at a Series seed deal, 0 traction, $30 million pre-money, 38 post. They have a term sheet from the Valley, right? And if that came to me, I said, I'm super interested. My pre-money valuation for you is $5 million. So you can come to me and work with me, or you can do this insane deal. Turns out he's going to come work with us, so that's great. But so we'll walk from any of those stupid types of deals all day long if valuations are insane. And if entrepreneurs don't understand the value of truly good partners, we'll walk from that all day. But at the end of the day, for me, it's a people business first and foremost. And that's probably one of the main reasons we'd walk.
Great answer.
Gene?
So here's what happens to us all the time. Similar story that you just heard. Maybe, whacked out valuation. But if I like them, if I like that team, and even if I don't, I will say to them, you are a team, a dream, a PowerPoint, and I'll bet you don't even have a dog, do you? And they go, oh yeah, we have a dog. And so what we see so much and where pass happens usually, even though we would do early, is that it is just a team, a dream, and a PowerPoint, and no dog. And that's not enough. Now, we do invest pre-product, pre-revenue sometimes, but guess what they've done? Highly articulated what they've done and what they're going to do for traction. The valuation is right sized. They know what in the hell they're talking about, because they're awake. And then they really show us how they're going to get this over the finish line. That makes a difference right there. And guess what? Then we take our wallet out. There's an old line. That entrepreneur has to know what to do and how to do it. You're not born knowing that. So go figure it out and tell us that story. Then you got a chance.
And that person you just described is literally Pat Sabatino. I mean, he talks about the story of just raising with him and a PowerPoint, but he had great, and he had the background at Salesforce. Pat can tell a story better than I can, but you said that's Pat. Thorn, tell us about a time you passed and why you passed.
So let me say first that there are a lot of things to look at, and among that set, there's a whole bunch that I'm probably not the right person to opine on. So I don't feel like I'm going to add a lot of value or decipher it. So that may be a case of it's not you, it's me, and that happens a lot.
Hello.
Let me also narrow it down further. It's kind of like trying to get into an Ivy League school these days. That sounds wrong, but what I mean by that is some of these places are turning.
Whoops, Thorn, you're
Just muted.
You muted.
Oh, sorry. So first of all, there are a lot of things. Was I muted the whole time?
Nope.
No.
Oh, okay.
Just for a second.
Okay. I don't know how that happened. So I think of this often as it's like an Ivy League school. They're turning down 3 valedictorians for every one they let in, right? So it's not that they're lacking something, but that there's just a wealth of good things, and sometimes there needs to be a spark and a match. Let me say the opposite of the people thing too for a second, because I've passed on things that where I just thought the people were awesome, and I would do anything to work with them, and I thought they were dynamic. And those are the times that I say to those are the hardest ones, I would say, when you really want to work with that person, but then you don't do it. And so I think about some of those times, and where I have to fall back on some kind of hard first principle. So why am I doing this, even though I care the most about the people? And I'll mention 2. One is, what is the type of demand you see out there? Is it something where customers don't know they're going to love it yet, like the iPhone, because they've never seen it? Is it something that the kind of demand I like to see? I was taught by Matt Puccini, who he likes the he likes the demand product interaction of, oh my God, my hair's on fire, sell me a bucket of water. So it's not something that they have to use their imagination to know they want. Is Matt out there still? Hopefully, it's something where there's a burning present problem that they want solved. So I often think about that, and I often talk to customers in that space. Is there that kind of direct burning problem where the person who's going to pay for it is the person who gets all the benefit? The other ones that I worry about that I've said no to, even when I did love the people, is a case where there are what I call a lot of yeses. A lot of people would have to say yes, maybe in the same organization, maybe in different types, maybe around the ecosystem. A bunch of people will have to say yes. Maybe it's regulators, maybe it's buyers and sellers. The world has to change in too many ways for this great new business to happen. So that's maybe a different way to look at it, and I'll leave it there.
Great. We have about 7 minutes left. I'm actually going to ask a follow-up question to that. So when you all are looking at a deal, do you all always, I'm going to throw you some quick, easy questions to answer, because these help young or new entrepreneurs, I should say, to understand the format of venture capital funding. Do you all always find somebody else to go in on a deal with you, or do you ever do deals by yourselves? Let's go around, starting with Thorn. Is there always a situation where you're needing to go in because somebody else is going in, or you need to help find somebody to syndicate that deal with?
So we have been, we're often first money. We're frequently the only money the first time, and we try to never be the only money the second time. I get a little bit worried if I'm the only person that loves it that much, and I don't know, does that like make me like shallow or something? But it just seems like a good indication if other people also like it. The Slater Fund's pretty small, so I like to have others around the table so that worst case scenario, the company could make it all the way with the investors that are around the table. That doesn't happen enough, but it's a nice to have. I also prefer, I said I'm not a specialist in any one industry. It's useful to have others who are very deep in the industry with them. So I guess what I'll say there is that we do it a lot, but I don't think it's a good idea on balance.
So just a follow up on that the others can address too. So if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm coming in to pitch to you, and I've already pitched to, say, 5, 10 other venture capitalists, is it a bad thing if I say, listen, I've already pitched to these guys and they seem really interested? Is that something that you look at and say, yeah, that's good? Or, hey, what are you doing? Like, you shouldn't be talking to all those VCs. How do you feel about that?
I would expect, so the way to run a round well, if you're an entrepreneur, is to get everything ready to go and find the 50 investors who are right for you, and get introductions to them all, and try and get meetings with 20 and term sheets from 4 and 1 or 2 of them into a deal. So it's a process that ought to be run in a narrow amount of time. So I would expect a seasoned entrepreneur to be talking to a lot of the right people. That wouldn't bother me whatsoever.
So same for Eugene, or tell us what you think.
Yes, I see that as hustle power. I think it's brave to go in alone, so I admire Thorn on his ability to do that. We always like to be surrounded by other people who could bring something to the table, including capital, because, there's always the walk through the valley of death. And so I want other pockets to be taking their wallets out with us to help, make things happen. And so, yes, in Starvest, we were B, C, D series investors. In my current world, we're early seed and A, and we do like to have company for the party. Believe me, it's hard. It's hard to build businesses. So, this helps us to have other brains around the table.
What about you, Tom? Same idea?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is understand who you're talking to, where they are in their fund life cycle. Do they even have capital to invest in you, and then make sure they have follow-on capital, right? So it's not just this round, but when you're doing your next round, will they be able to pour more fuel on the fire and make sure they're just not a one-time check? So we lead, we like to syndicate. We have done deals on our own, but like everyone else here, we like to have smart folks around the table. We're happy to bring in other people to write term sheets and do the legal work too. So it just depends on the deal. I have been in deals that I really like that I don't let anybody else come into because we know we're going to make a lot of money and we're selfish. And we have done that and it's worked out. So, it all just depends on the deal.
That's great. And by the way, quick aside, it's really important to remember, folks, that you need to find a lead in your round. If it's the first time, certainly reach out to people like myself or Adam or Pat that have done build companies based on having investors, and there's a certain structure you need to have around that. So Adam, you want to kind of close us out here?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions in the chat that talk about team. And I know we only have about 2 minutes here, but I like to do kind of a power run through here. VCs, every site says they invest in team. All they look for is team. What does that mean? Because I can put on a slide deck that we're dedicated, that we're the best person ever. But what do you actually look for in the entrepreneur? I know it's hard to actually simulate, are they going to have the grit? But can you talk to us a little bit about what do you look for in the person behind the deck? Gene, then Tom, then Thor.
Yeah, let me lead off quickly because I want the wisdom of my colleagues here. Let me tell you something I often tell entrepreneurs in these kinds of discussions. It's very controversial when people come up and thank me. Let's say you're not the right person to be the CEO that scales a business, but you are the right person to have founded it. You have the fire in the belly, the passion. I think it's very appropriate if you're connecting with that angel investor or even VC to say, look, I'm the founder. I know what to do. I've gotten it this far. At the right time, you and I together can bring in the right CEO to scale the business. I believe at that point, at least I and my other investor friends, breathe a sigh of relief saying, I love the company. I don't love this person. This is great because then he or she can put themselves in a different seat on the bus, being head of product or chairperson or whatever. And I think it relieves the problem. And you have then created a new world for yourself as that business owner. I really believe in that trick. And so that's just one clever idea to potentially smooth over a tough situation.
Anybody else on that?
Tom, opinion?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's do you have any skin in the game? Where have you failed? What questions do you ask? Who do you surround yourself with? Who's on your board? Are you how deep of a subject matter expert are you? There's a lot of things we spend time on, and we like to spend time with the team in numerous meetings, and not just on the numbers and things like that. So we spend a lot of time talking and working with the team. And then really what we like to see is how have you taken any of our feedback and changed from meeting to meeting? Are you willing to grow and listen? And from that perspective, yeah, I think that's it.
All right. Thorne, do you want to take us out and then we'll be done? And by the way, folks, if we didn't answer all your questions, we will get back to you with answers after the session.
Yeah, so I have a couple points on that. I think part of the question Adam may be asking, and maybe this is wrong, and tell me if I'm wrong, Adam, is what happens if you're coming out of college and you're that person? And what they mean by what's the team like is, have they sold 3 companies already? Because you haven't sold 3 companies and you can't change that about yourself. So what do you do then? Do you take yourself out of the game? Do you go hire someone who has sold 3 companies? Like that's a tougher thing. If you're going to say, well, I haven't sold 3 companies and I've never done it. Well, yeah, then you won't. then you won't be that person, right? So it's a little bit self-fulfilling. Let me say a couple other things about team. I really like what Gene said about the humility and the notion that you can replace yourself. I actually love to hear that. I think that's, and I think the same thing about myself as a board member. You asked about what I like in a founder. I like to see people talk about the full stack. Oh, I know how to do the lower level things up through all the way through the interface. And I like that because the sole founder is going to have to do a ton of things. I would consider that there's an industry stack as well. Who are the companies that are out there either as incumbents or sort of attackers? Do you know those people? Do you know how the industry has changed? Do you know how they price things? Do you know what their business models are? So I like to see experience in the full stack tech into industry. And then let me just say that I do like to see people who have sold 3 companies and are experienced. I like to see people that I've worked with before when they sold the company, but that's not really what the question is. So what can you bring to it naturally or maybe develop, which you can't in terms of experience or selling the company? And I'll say 2 things. Number one is that I look to see what Chip Hazard calls the Pied Piper, the Pied Piper aspect. Are people following this person? Is he attracting and gathering people? Are they working for nothing? Are they dropping everything? Are they somehow preternaturally sticky to other charming, talented people? So that you can have. The other thing I think of is what Mike Tyson says: everyone comes into a fight with a plan and then you get hit in the face, right? So what happens after you get hit in the face? And that you can see in somebody, maybe not in the first time you meet them, but you might see them get hit in the face over the next 6 months and change what they're doing or find someone else. And that shows you, okay, this guy is going to get hit in the face and is going to come back. So I think that of all these things is something that you don't have to be born with, don't have to already have experienced, but can develop.